Hello. In this presentation I am going to talk you through some paragraphs written by students in a recent timed essay. The subject of the essay was Power in the Tempest. Here is the question the students attempted. The characters in the Tempest all seek to use power for selfish ends. To what extent do you agree with this view of the play? If you haven't already had a go at this essay, why don't you pause the presentation here, attempt an essay plan, and then listen on to see if your ideas correspond to what the students came up with in their timed essay. It is worth noting that all assessment objectives apply to this essay question, so you should be exploring language, form and structure, thinking about different ways of approaching the play, and discussing historical, social or biographical context. Here is example 1. First, let's read the paragraph through. Prospero uses his power of magic for selfish means to gain control over other characters. He manipulates them to benefit himself only. For example, after telling Miranda about their history in the beginning of the play, he forces her to go to sleep. Here sees more questions, thou art inclined to sleep. The phrase cease and inclined are command words, imperatives, showing control and power. Prospero tells Miranda of their history to gain sympathy from Miranda. Shakespeare also uses this speech to tell the audience of Prospero's tale. In this instance, he uses Miranda to tell the story, as when she is asking questions, it was not part of the plan. Therefore, Prospero forces her to sleep. Taking a feminism reading of the play, whereby exploring the portrayal of Miranda, it would conclude that though through Prospero's actions he has stripped power from Miranda. Forcing her not to ask questions removes her voice, and inclining her to sleep makes her more passive, and this decreases her power in the play. It is also evident that Prospero uses his magical power to force Miranda asleep. Therefore, from this action, Prospero gains power over Miranda. This is apparent in the staging of the play. Prospero would be on a higher level than Miranda, thus looking down upon her. The height in characters and staging is significant, as it signifies to the audience that Prospero evidently is in control and has more power than Miranda. Okay, so let's talk through this paragraph. What is particularly pleasing about this paragraph is the way the writer tackles a number of assessment objectives together. The writer identifies a quotation to illustrate Prospero's forceful manner, and then carries out some detailed language analysis of the effect of word choice, gaining good AO2 marks. Further on, the writer discusses an action carried out by Prospero, putting Miranda to sleep. This is developed through taking a feminist approach and evaluating how this action creates a way of interpreting character relationship, nicely addressing AO3. The writer concludes the paragraph by commenting on stagecraft and the effect of proxemics in establishing character relationship. This awareness of the physical dimension of the play is often omitted by students, but it is essential for gaining top AO2 marks. Here is example paragraph 2. Let's start by reading again. Prospero is clearly the most powerful and central character in the play. It cannot be denied that Prospero cares for his daughter Miranda, and he therefore introduces her to young Prince Ferdinand, who is a thing divine whom Miranda falls in love with. Through this staging, it is evident that Prospero wishes for the two to fall in love, and he uses his degree of power to urge this to happen. The staging allows the audience to see this, as Prospero is present on stage while Miranda and Ferdinand first embrace each other, but he remains aside to let them converse with one another and become more fond of each other. Furthermore, in Act 3, Scene 1, Prospero is eavesdropping while Miranda and Ferdinand agree upon getting married. He plans for this to happen so it does not interrupt. Following this, Prospero has a mask party for Miranda and Ferdinand in order to bring them together. Therefore, Prospero's actions towards Miranda and Ferdinand are ultimately to create happiness for them in a very altruistic way, which is not for his own selfish ends. Okay, I picked this paragraph to show you as the writers tackled AO2 by focusing on the staging or form of the play. Quite often students forget to discuss the physical dimension of the play, as mentioned in the previous slide. Here the writer discusses the characters or actors' physical position on stage, and how this reveals Prospero's approval of the lovers' relationship. The writer also acknowledges other theatrical devices, such as the mask. This can be used to address AO4. This could have been enhanced by explanation of the role of masks in Renaissance theatre, but nonetheless shows understanding of the significance of context. The paragraph also ends with a clear link back to the topic of the essay, whether or not power is used for selfish ends. Here is the final example paragraph. I will read it through again, paying attention to the use of asterisks to show where the writer has wanted to insert an extra section. On the one hand, not all the characters in The Tempest seek to use power for selfish ends. For example, Bosun. In Act 1, Scene 1, despite Antonio and Sebastian constantly degrading him with foul language, he uses his knowledge of sea travel to help everyone. Lay a hold, set her 2 courses off to sea again, lay a hof. This extensive information Boatswain possesses puts him in a powerful position regardless of social position. Shakespeare has shown to the audience here how in the face of death, human interdependence and togetherness overcome social barriers between class. He directly mocks the class system here, which was risky at the time, as at the Globe a variety of classes came to watch. He has shown a role reversal in terms of power. Bosun could have decided to get rid of the arrogant and insensitive pair, but ushers on for survival and responsibility. Hence Bosun utilises his understanding for the welfare of those surrounding him, contradicting the above statement. Okay, this paragraph was selected because it raised a point that no one else in the class discussed, namely the power held by the bosun. I'm not saying you have to try to pick the most original or obscure points, but sometimes going beyond the more obvious topics will make you stand out to the examiner and show you have excellent knowledge of the text, which is part of AO1. I also like the way the writer develops the point about the bosun's unconventional power by linking to social context, discussing both the context of social hierarchy and the makeup of the contemporary audience generates good marks for AO4. This final slide is a summary of the arguments put forward in response to the essay question by the students during their timed assessment. You could use this to check your answers in your essays or in the essay plans that you wrote to see if you came up with these ideas or if there's any new ones you could add to this list.